Hey Gators and sports fans, get all your Gator talk, news, analysis, and opinions on the PodUp with Matthews in the Morning podcast. Find us on your favorite podcast platform or watch us on Facebook Live between 8 a.m. and 9 a.m. every weekday. PodUp, because we are Gator fans. So say it's great to be a Florida Gator.
Good morning and welcome to a Wednesday edition of PodUp with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. Large enough to serve you, small enough to care. It's a good Wednesday program. We got Lauren Haeger. We're going to be joined by here in just a second, maybe the greatest softball player at UF of all time. And then we'll be joined by Jessica Blaylock, a University of Florida graduate, journalist, broadcaster. She covers the Marlins and the Florida Panthers. But first, let's go to the Titan MR hotline. And we're joined by, as I mentioned, Lauren Haeger. Good morning, Lauren. How are you?
Good morning. I'm good. Thank you.
Well, Lauren, let's go back. You grew up in Arizona. Were you just a softball player, or did you play basketball, volleyball? Did you play multiple sports?
Yeah, I played volleyball, basketball, and softball in high school. And growing up, I played mostly volleyball outside of softball. So I played a few years of club volleyball as well as club softball. So I found a love for both of those sports at a very young age. And when I had to pick one, it made me really sad because I liked playing other sports.
I got you. Well, that's usually the best athletes play multiple sports. So you're a standout softball player out in Arizona, as I mentioned. I want to say, did your dad coach you?
So my dad, he didn't. I mean, he helped out with my travel ball teams, but he wasn't my main coach. He taught at the high school I went to my whole life. So he helped out with the softball team while I was there.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but he wasn't the head coach.
Okay. So when it got time for recruiting, obviously Tim Walton had been here for a few years, had built the Gator program, but you out west, I mean, University of Arizona, Arizona State, obviously they're powerhouses every year. And then you go to the other schools in the Pac-12. What made you choose Florida, and what other schools were you considering?
So it's actually funny because I think that the two schools that had the least amount of interest in me were Arizona and Arizona State. I don't know. I just kind of flew under the radar, I think, to them. And I can't remember which coach saw me first. I want to say Coach Rocha might have saw me first when I was playing in California. I played in California almost every weekend of my whole life, it seems like. But and so I didn't really know much about the Gators. I grew up an Arizona State fan. My family was huge Sun Devil fans. And so, West Coast teams UCLA and Arizona were big softball schools at the time, probably the biggest. And then Florida had just gone to the World Series for their first time. And it kind of was the Gators, I've heard of them before. And that's when the Gators came to Phoenix for the Fiesta Bowl. And so I kind of, recognized them by then too. But I am a diehard college football fan. My family has had college football tickets to ASU for 30 plus years, it seemed like. So I've been going. My dad coached football at my high school when I was little. So that was a big part of my life. And so that was, going to college, I wanted to have that kind of experience. So, and I also wanted to go away from home. I'm a very independent person. I left home and I haven't been back since. So I now live in North Carolina. So I haven't really even been home at all. But the other schools I was thinking of that I took visits to was obviously Florida, Texas A&M, Oklahoma State, Georgia, and Tennessee. So the SEC was just becoming pretty prevalent in college softball within the few years before I was, getting recruited and kind of putting them on the map. So I knew I wanted to go away from home, but I love college football. And so on my unofficial visit, I think they took me to Florida, or my official visit was Florida LSU. And I was like, yeah, I'd made the right choice.
Yeah. Speaking of that, you like in college football, I'm curious, I've always argued with people. I grew up in the South. I grew up in Mississippi, came to Florida to play ball and go to school. There's nothing like football in the SEC. I know there's great rivalries out in the Pac-12, but it's a way of life here. Were you surprised when you came on your visit how crazy the people are here compared to when you went to Pac-12 games?
Absolutely. And even just like the stadiums and how big they were and how many people were there, like that already was like double of what ASU Stadium basically holds. Me thinking that was a lot of people, but it literally, people bleed their teams when whatever team that they, root for in the SEC. And it is literally a way of life. They put their life on hold for these big games, and that's important. Like, you're not getting married on a Saturday in the fall. You're just not, right? Because, there's a football game. So I fell in love with it. I loved it. Just how loud the stadium was, how much tradition I also really liked about SEC football in general. There's tons of tradition, and it goes, years and years back. So I thought that was really interesting and cool.
We're speaking with Lauren Haeger here on the Titan MR Hotline. You can follow her on Twitter at lhager17. Lauren, so you decided to come to the University of Florida. Obviously, Coach Walton, Jen Rocha, that had to be one of the reasons why you wanted to play for those coaches. Just talk a little bit about, when I was in school here, there was no softball. It started after I graduated. And when Tim moved to town, his son Brooks and my son were the same age. So I coached Brooks in all his sports. So that's how I got to know them. Gotcha. And he and Sam were very good friends of mine. But I've been a huge softball fan ever since. I've been to the College World Series twice. Actually, my first trip was when we lost to Washington in the finals.
Yeah.
So to me, that's a great experience that sports fans have to attend the Women's College World Series. But once you got here, just what was it like playing softball for Tim Walton?
Now that I've been out and talking with other people about their experiences, it was honestly like, it was a dream come true. And the fact that it was really, really hard. If anyone knows Coach Walton and his personality, he likes things a certain way. It's, very organized. It's everything has a place. Everything has a time at all times. And so that can be a little overwhelming at first, especially me and my personality. Pretty easygoing, like, it's fun. This is fun. I'm glad I'm here. I'm having a good time. I'm here for a good time kind of person. So that was probably one of the biggest shocks to me about, playing for Coach Walton, is just how everything was ran. And in the best way possible. You can't ever be too organized, right? So, and I think just his style of play was perfect for me. And him as a human being taught me a lot about myself and about life and how honest he is. He's always been honest no matter about, what it is. It's always harder to tell the truth, but you tell the truth and you're honest. And whether he's talking to players or players are talking to him, things seem to roll. He was a guy that always kept his word. So no matter what bet we ever had with him, if winning a game, if we win this game, I get a bucket hat. And he's like, all right, if you hit a home run and throw a shutout, you get a bucket hat. And if you did it, it was sitting on your chair the next morning. So it was a pretty awesome experience. I couldn't have asked for anything better, especially being out and talking to, my friends about their collegiate experiences. I was very, very lucky to be in that program and surrounded by people that were family instead of just coaches and trainers and director of operations. It was very tight-knit and cool and close. So
you're trying to tell me you have 70 bucket hats?
No, I use that example as I think it was Super Regionals my senior year. And I was like, I want a bucket hat. All the managers, they all have these cool Florida softball bucket hats they wear to practice. And he's like, all right, you throw 2 shutouts against Kentucky and you hit a home run, there will be a bucket hat on your and I did that. And what do you know? There was a bucket hat sitting on my chair on Monday morning before we went to the World Series. So.
Well, a lot of people don't know you're the only player to ever play college softball that hit 70 home runs and had 70 wins. You and Babe Ruth, right?
Right.
That's phenomenal. So when you go back to your playing career, I guess was Alabama, it was y'all in Alabama going ahead. Georgia was good here and there, but it was mostly Alabama. Was that the one series that you look forward to playing the most?
That's hard because every series was so good at that time. My senior year at the World Series, 5 SEC schools were there and they were all on our regular schedules. So every single weekend, it seemed like that. I loved playing at Alabama. That was one of my favorite places to play just because it was so big and it was so loud and these people love Alabama and they were tough. They were a tough crowd and you knew it was going to be a tough series when you played there. I also liked playing at LSU. That's a very hostile environment, but one that I loved. I'm trying to think of other. I didn't like playing at Georgia, to be honest. Just their stadium is interesting, the way that it's set up. So like that makes a big difference on how you play. But I will say Alabama was always a really great game, and you knew it was going to be a great game. So I would say Alabama.
Lauren, being from out on the West Coast area, how important was it? And Tim does it every year. Y'all have that tournament out in California early in the season, because majority of his girls are the team's made up of girls from the West Coast.
Right.
How important was that for you and your families to be able to see y'all play, being so far from home?
It was really special that we got to make that trip, and I think he knew that it was special because his entire family's from California. So he as well got to use that time to see his parents and his family. My parents are teachers. And so it was hard for them to get to Florida a lot just because, I mean, you're an employee for how many days out of the year. So my parents' spring break and my dad had a fall break. They would try to make it out to Florida, but for the most part, Palm Springs is only 4 hours from my house in Arizona. And a lot of my family got to go that couldn't always make that trip, cousins, aunts, uncles. And what I've always admired about Coach Walton is he does make family a big priority. So, like I said, getting to experience other programs now that I've been out of softball, and, people weren't allowed to go with their families after games and we're allowed to go eat with them or whatever it may be, but he always made that a big priority. And especially when we went to California, as soon as we were done playing, everyone was allowed to go hang out with their people. And that meant a lot to us as a whole, but also just playing in front of your people is very different and very exciting.
Yeah. At Chris Doring Mortgage, they do mortgage lending right, helping home buyers throughout Gainesville and North Central Florida. Call Chris Doring Mortgage today, 352-244-0840. We're speaking with Lauren Haeger on the Titan MR hotline. We got a text on the Titan MR text line. It comes from Stephanie. She wants to know which national championship is more special.
They're both so special for different reasons. My first one was definitely every single dream that I had ever had when I was little. I had like a flashback of my whole entire softball career. And I was like, did I just do that? Like, did I really just have, that dream in my hands and that actually happened? And then the second one, just because of, the pattern of losing Hannah and becoming the number one pitcher and like working through that was really, really difficult. And it was really hard. And so being able to come out on top as the winning pitcher, thinking I would never do that, was really special as well. So they were both very different. The first one hit just because that's what I dreamed about my whole entire life.
Yeah, you were the most outstanding player, was in the 15 national championship out there at the World Series. You're also the SEC Female Athlete of the Year. I guess 10 years from now, or from when you graduated, you'll be a Hall of Famer here at the University of Florida. You're my third softball player. I've had Amanda Lorenz on, and I've had Aubrey Monroe on as well. So you're my third softball girl on. Talk a little bit about what Sunflower Saturday means to Lauren Haeger.
Yeah. So I probably line up more with Aubrey and her story with Heather, just because I got to the University of Florida and Heather had already been a part of our program for about 4 or 5 years. And so she came to almost every home game, and, I felt like I didn't really spend the time to get to know her as much as I should have until later on in my sophomore and junior year. I started to really get to know her and hang out with her more in the dugout and talk about things and similar things that we had going on in our life, as in like we both had a brother named Matthew, and we both, we kind of bonded over those things. And then when Heather got sick junior year, and you could just really see the decline in her health and how hard it was for her family, and then for us as well. We kind of started to we wore yellow ribbons in our hair for pediatric cancer. We already wore flowers. So then that's where the sunflower came from. And so just seeing how much of an impact Heather has made on our program since has been really, really awesome, especially getting to know her and actually being around when she was there. it's really, really cool because it just reminds you that you're really lucky and really you getting to play softball is not something that you should take for granted because not everybody can, especially when there's kids like Heather out there. But I think it sends a good message to the country about, appreciating the little things and appreciating getting to play the sport because not everyone can. And it's a good way to honor her because she deserves to be honored with what she brought to our program.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So you've been back since the new facility, new stadium's been built?
Yes. I came back, obviously not this past April, but the April before.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet. I watched the games from Tim's office up on the balcony and just y'all's locker room, it's
Right.
state of the art. I mean, that obviously you didn't get to play in it, which that you probably wish you could, but it's got to feel pretty good that you were one of the players that kind of laid the foundation for that facility to be built.
Yeah, I think for me walking into that stadium, I felt a really big sense of pride and a big sense of, without us and Coach Walton and the coaches, that wouldn't have happened and that couldn't happen. And so it was really cool. Obviously jealous, right? Like that locker room and their bathroom where they all get ready. That was such special for us. When I heard the locker room got tore down, actually it was really sad just because of all the memories that we've had in there and all that kind of stuff. But it gives an opportunity for all the classes after us to create their own memories in that stadium. And it's beautiful. It's really beautiful. And it makes me really proud to do what I have done and to put in all that hard work there because the University of Florida softball team deserves that. The University of Florida deserves that, to have a stadium like that. So it's beautiful. And they did such a great job for sure.
Yeah, it's awesome. I've always wanted to ask, and I've never asked Tim this, but I'm going to ask you. He's a uniform guy, as we all know. Who chooses the combinations y'all wear?
So I remember it being him. He chose a lot of them, kind of what he wanted us in. It depends on the school we're playing, right? So when we're playing Kentucky, we're a lot of orange, we wear a lot of black, gray, white, less blue. We're playing Tennessee, it's blue everything. So that kind of changes per school we're playing. But he usually has a senior or two that he goes to when I was there to pick out the uniform or kind of suggestions of what we wanted to wear. But he was always the one that made the final decision. Like I said, he likes his ways, and that's just kind of how he is. But we always looked really good. I'll remember the first day he told us we were going to have orange pants. And all of us were like, oh, my God, like, I have orange pants. Like, that's going to look awful. Well, frick, we put them on, and they were really great. They looked so good, and they had a gator head on them, and they became one of our staples throughout my whole career. But you always got to trust the guy with what we wear because it always ended up looking really good.
Yeah, no doubt. We got another text here on the Titan MR text line. It comes from Jim. Jim wants to know, Lauren, what is the one moment in your Gator softball career that stands out the most?
That's not fair. My senior year plays a big part of that. Every memory that I have really goes back to that time, but I'll never forget the moment I was named SEC Pitcher of the Year, just because so much of my identity was being a hitter and so much of my identity was being a utility player. And I was a good pitcher. I went to the University of Florida and I pitched, so I wasn't awful, right? So I was a good pitcher. It was hard for me to win multiple ball games in a weekend as a pitcher. And so my senior year, when that did happen for me, I just remember that moment being so special with Coach Rocha, just because of how hard we worked in that bullpen and how creative we were and how many different change-ups we went through, and just to get me to that level of being recognized as a pitcher. And then winning that award was really, really special. I won a few while I was there, but that one will always put a special moment in my heart. But I'll never forget that moment of when he actually told me that. That was one that just first comes to mind. I'm sure there's so many more.
Yeah. You also won the Hondo Award. What was it like winning the Hondo Award?
That was really cool. And it was during the summer. It got announced during the summer while I was playing pro ball. And so just getting to hear the list of other athletes in all the other sports of who won the Hondo Award and showing up there, and like every single girl that won the Hondo Award in their sport was a national champion, was an All-American, had the exact same accolades as I did, but in their sport. So it was really cool to be surrounded by girls who had done that as well. Like I made the top 3 with Missy Franklin, who was an Olympic swimmer, and Brianna Stewart, who was obviously a 4-time national champion at UConn for basketball, who plays in the WNBA now. So that was really cool to be recognized in that kind of group of athletes. But yeah, so standing up there with an Olympian and someone who plays in the WNBA was a cool experience.
Yeah, absolutely. So you get drafted. A lot of people, they do play professional softball. You were drafted by the team in Dallas, correct?
Yes.
Are you still playing with them?
I am not. I am not playing anymore. Last summer was the first summer I didn't play. The Dallas Charge, actually, in my 3rd year, 2018 summer, they actually, or 20, I don't know. What year is it? What day is it?
Yeah, we're very confused. Exactly, yeah. So it was in second time.
They actually folded in the MPF. So I played with the Dallas Charge, and they turned to Texas Charge for 3 years. And then I played my last summer in pro ball for the Scrapyard
So you're officially retired from playing softball?
Officially retired. I think that I'm not saying I'll never play softball again, but as of right now, the opportunity is just not what I'm looking for. And just everything that's going on in the world at the moment. So I'm not saying it's over forever, but I'm not saying I'm going to start playing again. I don't know.
So are you coaching softball?
I am coaching. I give lessons full time at a facility here in Charlotte that's actually owned by Kelsey Bruder, who played softball at Florida. Her and her husband own a softball facility mixed with the CrossFit gym. I give pitching lessons here, I give hitting lessons here, and I also coach a youth travel ball team in Team North Carolina. And so that's been really fun getting into the travel ball world. I really, really enjoy it.
Are you one of these crazy coaches that causes issues at tournaments?
I'm going to go with no. I was really, really lucky to be on the team. The head coach of our team is an amazing human being. His family is so great. Our parents are so great. I actually like the kids. I actually enjoy being around them. They're really, really good. So that helps as well. But it's probably the best situation I could have ever fallen into. These travel ball parents are crazy. Some of them are crazy, but I'm lucky to play for an organization where we don't really have a whole lot of that on our team at all.
So softball, you were talking about how when we were talking about Tim Walton, you're a happy type person. I've always wanted to ask this, whether y'all strike out, you make an error out in the field, y'all are laughing and giggling and high-fiving and slapping gloves. Is that just a softball thing?
I would say it's like a team culture thing. I think that not everybody is like that. I've played with players that aren't like that. I've played on teams that people get really upset. Our sport is hard, and learning how to deal with failure is a process you start from when you're little all the way up through college and professionally. But I do think Coach Walton makes a very big priority of not being a selfish human, and those kinds of things, and reacting in a negative way can come off very selfish. And so they make it a huge priority in that program to make sure that you're not acting that way. And it's not the last error you're going to have. It's not the last home run that's going to be hit off of you. And so it's better to be more, have more fun than be so wrapped up in the failure part of our sport. So he makes that a big priority when it comes to team culture and team chemistry.
Yeah. We got a few more minutes here with Lauren Haeger. Steve has a text on the Titan MR text line. He wants to know, 2-part question. Who was the one batter that you hated to face, and who was the one pitcher you hated to face? I guess he's referring in the SEC, maybe just in your college career.
Yeah. Oh, gosh. Oh, yikes. Got to really dig back. That was like almost 6 years ago now, which is crazy. 5 years ago. I would say a pitcher that I just always had trouble with, that I feel like I just couldn't hit very well, was early on, like junior, sophomore, was the Renfro sisters at Tennessee. Ellen Renfro was really hard. She threw a really slow rise ball. So rise balls already look like a big pizza on a platter. And then when it's slower, it's even more that way. So you seem to swing at it a little bit more. But it's a hard pitch to throw. So I'd say I had a hard time with her. And then, actually my freshman year, I had a really hard time with a Georgia pitcher. I struck out like 10 times in a row against her. What was her name? I was a freshman, so that was like 10 years ago.
Long time ago.
Oh man, she was a senior in Georgia. I was a freshman, and I can't remember her name off the top of my head for right now. But yeah, she struck me out like 10 times in a row, and I was like, I don't know what to do at this point. And then as a hitter, a team that I struggled with more my senior year, we only played them once, but Auburn was pretty tough. They were tough on me at first. Alabama's a tough hitting team as a whole. I don't think I could pinpoint one hitter right now. That would take me a second. Coach Wallen probably could. He'd be like, you struggle with this girl and you couldn't hit this girl. He'd be able to answer that so fast, but I just.
Another text here on the Titan MR text line from Ken. Ken wants to know, what of your former Gator teammates do you stay in touch with the most?
I would say I talked to Kelsey Stewart a lot. Was someone that the girls in our class, my senior class, was hard because we all literally split up into different states around the entire country. Some people stayed in Florida. Katie Medina's out on the West Coast. Justin Miko's back at her home, and everyone just kind of went back to where they came from, which was a lot of places. So we keep in touch every once in a while via social media and stuff. But I talked to Kelsey Stewart. I talked to Auburn Monroe, people that I played with in the league, kind of kept me a little bit closer. But I keep in touch with all of them a little bit, I'd say. We're just at some are married with kids, some aren't. Like, we're at this weird time in our lives of like really starting our life with a family, and then other people don't want to yet. And so we're all just kind of everywhere.
Yeah, we got a Facebook Live question here, kind of a question comment brought to you by Meldon Law, where you matter most. It comes from Evan. Evan wants to know, what are your thoughts and how proud are you to see 3 Gators on the Olympic team?
Obviously so proud. I've played with every single one of those girls, and they're so good at what they do. Aubrey Monroe, hands down, best catcher I've ever had catch me my whole life.
Isn't it surprising for her to be so good being that tall?
Yeah. People don't believe me when I tell her how tall she is. I'm like, Aubrey's as tall as I am. And they're like, what? And but she is so quick being so tall, and she slings shots that arm so fast and throws every single person out. Everybody out. There's not one like pinch runner hitter in this country that she cannot throw out at second base. But she works really hard at what she does, and she did too when she was little. But yeah, she's super tall, and people don't believe me that she is super tall. I can't squat that long being this tall. And then Kelsey Stewart just being a good friend of mine ever since we were like, I met her when I was, I think, 17, trying out for the junior national team. So we've kind of kept in touch the whole time. And then Michelle Moultrie being one of the greatest humans I've ever met in my whole life. It's pretty cool to see those 3 get to live out that dream that they had when they were little, and it got taken away from us. And now, it's back on the map. So really proud of them.
Last thing for you, Lauren, when you look back at this past spring, obviously with COVID, cut the girls' season short. All spring sports were canceled. Can you even imagine that happening if you were still in school? How difficult that must be?
Absolutely not. And then especially even now, then not even knowing anything what's going on, it won't be the same this year or probably next year. Until a few years from now, it'll be the same. But when that did happen, I was like, I just can't imagine. My senior year was life-changing for me. And I can't imagine that cut off for somebody. Someone's senior season was going to be absolutely life-changing for them. And all the awards that I won and all the hard work that I put in. And I can't even imagine my life without those things. Just teaching me life lessons and teaching me, getting to play professionally and all those kinds of things. I was devastated for them, knowing how hard it is to get through a fall as a softball player at the University of Florida. It is hard. I don't think I could have done it 5 years. There's no way I could have got through those 6 a.m.s again. They're tough. They're really tough. So I felt for them entirely. I can't even say that I know what no one knows what it feels like. Yeah. It was new for everybody. So I can't imagine. I'm very lucky that I got to play my 4 years without a global pandemic to mess it up, right? Who would have thought that was going to happen?
No doubt. Last thing, let people know we got people listening all over the country. If we got anybody listening in Charlotte with some little girls that want to get some lessons, how do they get in touch with you?
So, my social media has a link to the Softball Project website. So Haeger 17 on Instagram. And then thesoftballproject.com. You'll have, all the information on there, but we're located in Matthews, which is a little bit South Charlotte. Charlotte's not huge, but that's kind of where we are. And another Gator runs it. So that's kind of cool. So that's where you can find it, thesoftballproject.com.
Well, I said it was going to be the last thing. Why did you wear number 17?
I wore 00 for a lot of my life. And then when I got to my gold team, someone already had it, so I had to change it. And I figured, to me, it was a number that not everybody had, number one, but it also had never really made a name for itself. And that's a huge reason why I chose it. And then it just kind of stuck, and it kind of fit me, and it just kind of stuck with me forever. Have it tattooed on me at this point. It means a lot to me. So really no reason, no family ties, no athlete ties. I just thought it was different, and I wanted to kind of put it on the map, I guess.
Well, you did for sure. No doubt about it. Most decorated softball player we've had here at the University of Florida. We appreciate you taking the time to join us. Stay safe in Charlotte, and we'll talk to you soon.
Yes, thank you so much.
All right, that's Lauren Haeger. Join us on the Titan MRR hotline. At Center State Bank, we put business first. We are the largest community bank in the state of Florida and understand that small businesses need a community business partner that they can rely on. Center State has 5 convenient Alachua County locations to serve you better. Center State Bank, member FDIC. When we come back, we'll be joined by Jessica Blaylock. She covers the Marlins and the Florida Panthers, and she is a former Gator as well. You're watching and listening to PodUp with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. We'll be right back.
Hey Gators, this is Coach Steve Spurrier. PodUp with Matthews in the Morning. We'll be right back after this commercial break.
We want to take this moment to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Our Gridiron sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Area Rug Masters, your number one choice in Gainesville for all your area rug cleaning services. Meldon Law, where you matter most. Peachland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte. Our touchdown sponsors are Campus USA Credit Union, Celebration Point Town Center, The Digital Mortgage Guy, Adams Ribs, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Center State Bank, Gator Bait Media, Davis Gainesville Chevrolet, Miapa Latin Cafe, Gators Dockside, Okido America Martial Arts and After School, Doreen Wiebe Realtor, Caldwell Banker MM Parish, Radware, Style Cuts, Wrap Spot, Ironwood Golf Course, TB Financial, Chris Doring Mortgage, Meadowbrook Golf Course, Darshakow Insurance, Pomodoro Cafe, MB Listings, Big Mills Cheesesteaks, Cornerstone Financial Group, McDonald's of Gainesville, My IT Master, 84 Lumber, and Gainesville Neon and Signs. If you are interested in promoting your business on the show, you can visit our website, podupwithshane.com, and click the Advertise button or call Freddie at 352-284-3733. Again, thank you for all the great businesses that support the show. Please remember, if you like what we are doing here, thank our sponsors and support the businesses that support us. Welcome back to PodUp with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. I want to thank former Gator softball player Lauren Haeger for joining the program. Now we're going to go back to the Titan MR hotline, but first, celebration points where the Gators come to celebrate with premium brands like Bass Pro Shop, Tommy Hilfiger, Hotel Indigo, Nike, Medici's, Regal Cinemas, and coming soon, the HBC's new restaurant, Spurrier's Gridiron Grill and Visor's Rooftop Bar. We will see you at Celebration Point where the Gators come to celebrate. Now we're going to go to the Titan MR hotline, and we're joined by Jessica Blaylock, former Gator herself. Now she covers the Marlins and the Florida Panthers of the National Hockey League. Good morning, Jessica. How are you?
I am wonderful. How are you doing?
I'm surviving. Gosh, it's got to be very difficult for you being a broadcaster right now, covering 2 major sports, but not actually being at the game.
Yeah, it's definitely unique broadcasting from an empty ballpark when the team is on the road having no game on the field, at least when they're back at Marlins Park. It feels a little bit more like a game-like atmosphere. And then hockey, doing a pre and post game and intermissions from a studio, but obviously there in the bubble in Toronto. So certainly unique, but I am just very grateful to be able to cover anything at this point. It's been wonderful to have baseball back. It's been wonderful to resume hockey. So no complaints here.
Yeah. Jessica, let's go back to your younger days. You grew up in Jacksonville, Florida. What did you play a lot of sports growing up? What made you want to be a sportscaster?
Yeah, a couple of things in particular. I was actually a competitive swimmer for 10 years. So I loved swimming, started doing that when I was 8 years old, played volleyball in middle school and high school, played basketball in middle school, and just grew up in a family where sports was always on. You know, my dad and even my mom, just big sports fans. So every Saturday, college football was on. Every Sunday, NFL was on. My dad's a big baseball fan. So, you know, there was just always sports on. And I was always surrounded by it growing up. But really the biggest thing was in middle school, I took a journalism class as an elective and just fell in love with it and always knew, luckily, what I wanted to do. So it all really started when I was young, not only developing a love for delivering news stories and being on camera, but also just growing up surrounded by sports.
When you went to the University of Florida, you graduated, as you said, from the journalism school there, but also you have a history degree. What was it like? I want to say you probably worked a lot with Steve Russell.
Yes.
Yeah. So tell us what it was. I do a lot of radio during football season with Steve. What was it like working with Steve there?
Well, it was great. And, you know, Steve was always very supportive of students, especially who wanted to go into sports. And when I was 17 in high school, I absolutely fell in love with that Gator basketball team that made it to the championship game and lost to Michigan State. And that was what made me want to cover sports. You know, I always knew I wanted to be a journalist, but didn't really know that I wanted to cover sports until I was in high school. And I just thought to myself, it would be so much fun to cover a team like that. So when I got to Florida and declared journalism as my major, you know, it's at the time back in 2001, if you wanted to do sports, it was all on a volunteer basis. You know, now there's programs, you can actually get a sports journalism degree. There's all these classes. But back then, if you wanted to do sports, it was completely on your own time. But working with Steve and working with everyone in the journalism department, volunteering to cover whatever sports I could, whether that was volleyball or tennis or golf or, you know, I got to cover our baseball team for 2 seasons. I got to cover our basketball team the last year I was at Florida. Steve and everyone who has a passion for sports and especially Gator sports was always so supportive and so great to work with. And I still have the opportunity now to go on and talk Marlins with Steve or whatever I'm covering at the time. I've been on with him a couple of times. So it's awesome to know that even though I haven't been in college for 15, almost 20 years, those relationships and those connections are still there.
Yeah, absolutely. We're speaking with Jessica Blaylock. You can follow her on Twitter at Jess Blaylock. We got a Facebook Live question here for you, brought to you by Meldon Law, where you matter most. It comes from Philip. Philip wants to know, what's your favorite player that you've interviewed?
Oh, man, that is a great question. And I don't know if I can answer it with just one player. If I had to choose just one, my all-time favorite player that I've had the chance to work with is Martin Parado. He was with the Marlins to end his career, but also played for the Braves, the Diamondbacks, and the Yankees. And he's one of those guys that just automatically commands respect based on the way that he treats his teammates, based on the way that he treats you, the way he goes about his business, and especially baseball. It's such an individual stats-driven game, but he always put those on the back burner for the better of the team. And just was always great with me, always joking around, always made me feel welcome and comfortable. So Martin Prado, probably one of my favorite players that I've had the chance to work with and interview. But also when I was covering high school football state finals way back in the day, I had the opportunity to interview Jack Nicklaus because his grandson, Nick O'Leary, played high school football for Dwyer, and they were in the state finals. And you would think he would be a very intimidating person to talk to, but he was fantastic. He was so funny. And that was very early on in my career on camera. So I was still a little nervous and probably a little deer in the headlights. And I'm thinking to myself, oh my gosh, I'm interviewing the Golden Bear. Like, what? I can't screw this up. It's got to be perfect. And he just was so warm and made me feel like I could talk to him about anything. And he was so proud of Nick. So that would probably also rank up there with one of my favorite interviews I've ever had the chance to do.
So after college, you've done a bunch of stuff before you started working for Fox Sports Florida, but you worked with my buddy Frank Frangie.
Yes.
Up in Jacksonville. How was it working for Frank? And you also, I want to say you had a women's only football talk show, right?
Yes. So boy, I mean, we could talk forever about Frank and how awesome he is and what a significant role he's played in my development. And my relationship with Frank goes back years because I used to babysit his daughter. And so I've known Frank forever. And so Frank has not only been kind of like a second dad, in addition to a work colleague, he's always been such a huge cheerleader for me and provided so much encouragement and believed in me very early on when I was untested, especially on the radio side of the business. And working for 1010XL and 92.5 FM in Jacksonville, and the general manager, Steve Griffin, and Frank and Rick Ballou, and just the whole crew, everyone I had the chance to work with. It was awesome. And it allowed me to grow so much in who I was as an on-air personality and who I was as an interviewer, having the opportunity to cover the Jaguars, and who I was just as a broadcaster. And one of the best pieces of advice I can give people, if you have the opportunity to work in radio, if you want to be a sports journalist and you have the opportunity to work in radio, do it, because it helps tremendously with your development. And so I started off at 1010XL really only doing, sports updates a couple times an hour, and over 5 years, by the end of it, had the opportunity to host, a women's only broadcast on Jaguars football called Helmets and Heels. And just for the radio station to believe in us to be able to break down football, for the Jaguars organization to be so supportive of it and provide us, players to talk to, and our head coach at the time, Gus Bradley. And it was just really awesome to see what Frank and what 1010XL, what that time in my life meant to me, not only personally because I loved it so much, but for my development as a journalist.
We're speaking with Jessica Blaylock on the Titan Mar hotline. She works for Fox Sports Florida, covering the Panthers and the Marlins. And we got a text here on the Titan Mar text line. It's from Joe. Joe wants to know, Jessica, what do you prefer or like best, covering the Panthers or the Marlins?
I get that question a lot, and it's honestly one of the hardest questions to answer because I love each one of them, but for such different reasons. Baseball, I love the game because of how much strategy is involved. And I know people say, oh, baseball can be such a slow sport at times, but when you fully embrace it, and, I love scoring games, which also helps with the flow and things like that. So I love covering baseball for that reason, just the strategy behind it and how it really is such a chess game, and the pitcher versus the hitter and just everything that goes into it. And then I love covering hockey because it's so fast, right? Like people see a 1-0 hockey score and they're like, oh, that's got to be so boring. But you really spend so little time in the neutral zone. So you're either always defending the puck or trying to get the puck in the back of the net. And there's so much action. And then hockey players are just some of the best athletes you'll ever work with. It's such a blue collar feel in the sport. But baseball is like such a family because you spend so much time with these guys throughout the course of a season. And I travel with the Marlins. So I'm on the team plane. You know, I stay at the team hotel. I take the bus with these guys to the ballpark. I'm at the ballpark with them. I'm in the clubhouse with them. So you really turn into such a family because you probably spend more time with these players throughout the course of a season than they do with their own families. Mm-hmm. So I'm taking the easy way out on this, and I completely understand that. But I mean, hockey and baseball really are 1A and 1B. And I'm so grateful that I get to cover two sports and two teams that I genuinely love so much.
How difficult is it, like right now with Marlins playing, you got the bubble going on with the NHL? How hard is it to do both?
Well, it's tough. It's not tough to balance covering both of them. The toughest thing is missing out on the personal connections, right? Because everything we do is through Zoom. Everything we do is over a computer. And you're so used to being able to walk into a hockey dressing room or a baseball clubhouse. And sometimes some of the best stories come from not your preparation before the start of a game, but just from being around the players, right? Something just develops very naturally. Or, you know, I've walked into the clubhouse before and I had one of our starting pitchers who was throwing that day come up to me and be like, "Hey, Jess, I've got this great story for you about the catcher for the other team who used to catch me." And it's something that you didn't plan for that, but it just kind of developed naturally and it ends up being a great story. Well, you miss out on that when you're doing everything through the computer. You know, that's the most challenging thing is just losing that personal connection. And especially for me, you know, this is my 6th season covering the Marlins and it's my 5th season covering the Panthers. So a lot of these guys I've been with for years now, and they're not just players anymore. They feel like your kids or your younger brother, right? So, I mean, I think that's just the hardest part is missing out on that face-to-face, being around each other, personal connection that you kind of lose a little of when you just have to rely on everything over a computer screen. Right.
I was going to ask you this. We've talked about it, but you're covering a Major League Baseball team, so maybe you know the answer to this. You know, the NBA has done a tremendous job with their bubble. NHL's doing their bubble. Why did Major League Baseball, and we know the COVID issues that the Marlins had, some other teams have had at the Cardinals, but why did Major League, I thought at one time they were talking about taking like the American League, sticking them out in Arizona and the National League down here somewhere in Florida and keep everyone playing in a central location. Why did they decide to start flying from city to city, playing in the ballparks when there are no fans there?
I think logistically, it just would have been way too difficult. The crews and the staff that you bring along for baseball is so much larger and so much more extensive than hockey or NBA. And especially for baseball, with no minor league seasons, you would have also had to bring your taxi squad. So you're looking at, you know, for the NBA and the NHL, who may have to deal with 20 to 30 players. Well, baseball now it's 60. And that's also now you got to factor in, okay, staff, coaches, whatever front office personnel, PR, all of that. I think it just logistically, it would have been really tough. And then you also have to think about the fact that NBA and NHL play inside, and you would have had to find ballparks. You know, if you're set up in Arizona, you're in that desert heat in July where it's 110 degrees outside. If you can't find ballparks that all have a roof, it's ridiculously hard for a 110 pitch to happen at 110 degrees in the afternoon. So I think logistically, it would have been incredibly, incredibly difficult to pull off. not only from the number of people you would have had to travel and make sure you find lodging and kind of keep them all in the same area. But I think it would have been difficult also to find the facilities to pull off that many games throughout the course of a day, dealing with weather, dealing with potential rain delays and rainouts. It would have been a lot. It would have been a lot.
Sure. We got a text here, got a few more minutes left with Jessica Blaylock. Text from John. John wants to know, Jessica, is there a female sportscaster that you looked up to?
Oh, 100%. I mean, there were multiple. My number one all-time ultimate GOAT, Doris Burke, hands down. I think Doris Burke is the greatest of all time. It's not even close. And what I love so much about Doris is she can do it all, right? She can call the game. She can do color commentary. She can do the sidelines. She can host. I mean, she really has the knowledge and the ability to be so diverse with what she can offer a broadcast. And I love the thing too, that when you watch Doris Burke interact with players, you can tell she has their respect. You know, they call her by her first name. They give her great answers. You can just see the way that they interact with her, the amount of respect and trust that they have. And that's the number one thing that you want as a broadcaster, right? You know, it's nice to hear compliments and it's nice to, you know, to see positive feedback, but at the end of the day, your number one priority is trust and respect of the players and the coaches that you cover. And Doris Burke, just to me, is the absolute best. But I mean, I also have to give credit to a fellow Gator, Aaron Andrews, because I worked behind the scenes for ESPN for 5 years on the Thursday night college football crew and the Saturday primetime college basketball crew. And Aaron was the sideline reporter for both. And she was so encouraging of me to follow my dreams of being on camera. And she would let me tag along on the sidelines. She would let me ask questions. I remember one game, we were at the hotel and I ran into her in the lobby and she sat with me for an hour and just basically told me to follow my dreams of what I wanted to do in this business. So, you know, I have to give Erin a lot of credit for her support along the way. And even when I got my first job on camera, Erin sent me a congratulations card and a gift card to Sephora to buy on-camera makeup. So, I mean, you know, it's just, and that's why I think it's so important too, to now encourage people who ask me for advice, because it really is a trickle-down effect, right? You've always got people who support you and encourage you along the way. So you in turn should pour out what was poured into you and give support and encouragement to people who want to follow in your footsteps, you know? Absolutely. So, but yeah, I would definitely say Doris Burke, because I so admired her ability to do everything and do it well. And Erin just was a huge source of inspiration and encouragement, and really who I, in the very beginning of my career, tried to model myself after, because she was that you know, main example that I really had the opportunity to watch how she did things.
Last thing for you. I'm trying to put the years together. Did you ever have any run-ins with the head ball coach, Coach Spurrier?
I did. So Spurrier's last year was my freshman year at Florida. And I worked in the football office, just part-time. And it's funny, my name is Jessica, but my nickname is Jess. Nobody in my entire life has ever called me Jessie. I'm so not a Jessie. I'm a Jess if you're gonna abbreviate my name. But the one person who is allowed to call me Jessie is Steve Spurrier, because he adds an IE to everybody's name. So every time I'd see him in the football office, he'd be like, "Hey Jessie, how you doing? How you doing?" So Steve Spurrier, Ichiro used to call me Jesse when he was playing for the Marlins. So Steve Spurrier and Ichiro are the two people in my life who get a pass calling me Jesse.
That's great. So you never got a chance to interview him or cover him?
No. When I was a freshman, I wasn't yet into really volunteering covering sports yet. That didn't happen until really my sophomore year. So I never, unfortunately, had a chance to interview Coach Spurrier in that final season. But I did luckily have the chance to be around him on occasion in the football office and interact with him there. So that was great. I mean, we'll forever love Steve Spurrier.
No doubt. Last thing, I know you're a big-time Gator. Your thoughts on what Dan Mullen's done with the program in the 2 years he's been here?
Oh, it's so exciting to see, right? I mean, it's so much fun to watch. And it's funny because it is tough with my baseball and hockey schedule. I don't really have downtime throughout the course of a year, and a lot of times I work games on Saturdays. So I have to DVR Gator football games and try and catch up on them later, because I think this past football season I was maybe home for one college football Saturday. Like even Florida, Georgia, which is always at 3:30. I had to work a hockey game that night, and I had to leave for the arena right around 3:34. So it's very difficult for me to like highly follow, Gator football. But what I've seen, I'm so encouraged. I'm so excited by, I've always loved Gator football. I've always loved Gator basketball. And it's good to see success come again. It's good to see excitement around the program like we've seen over the past couple of seasons again.
Absolutely. Well, Jesse, we appreciate you joining the program today. Stay safe down there, covering hockey and baseball through Zoom. And we really do appreciate you taking the time to join us.
Well, thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. And
Absolutely.
Go Gators.
That's Jessica Blaylock. Join us on the Titan Tomorrow hotline. We're going to wrap this show up today. It's a wrap brought to you by Wrap Spot. Take care. We'll see you tomorrow.